Today's book is the Usborne Guide to Computer and Video Game, How They Work and How to Win, published by Usborne Electronics. My copy is an ex-library edition, which cost £2.25 and was originally published in 1982. It was written by Ian Graham, edited by Lisa Watts, designed by Round Designs and Roger Priddy, illustrated by Graham Smith, Graham Round, Ian Stephen and Tony Morris. Thanks to Simon Lowe for the arcade games playing tips. The names of the games in this book and this video are registered trademarks. The book has been produced independently of the games manufacturers, and the winning strategies for the games have been devised by our own experts. We're going to go through the book, looking at handheld games, TV games, micro games, other sorts of games, arcade games. Also going to have a look at a handheld game in detail with a playthrough of one of mine. Let's get started with electronic games. Each of these electronic games contains a tiny computer on a silicon chip. The computer creates and controls all the effects of the game. It can pick a series of numbers for you to guess, or a sequence of notes to copy, and can control the invading aliens in a space game. This picture shows an electronic game with the front taken off. The chip is surrounded by other electronic components, such as a fluorescent tube, batteries, resistors and capacitors. We'll have a look at one of my electronic games later in this video. There is a two-page spread about how a handheld game is made. First stage is the development of a detailed plan of the game, working out the rules and the scoring system, and a graphic designer makes sketches for the display and the characters in the game. Then a computer program is written with instructions telling the computer exactly how to play the game. It's written in computer language and then translated into ones and zeros. An electronic engineer then designs circuits to match the pulses and no pulses in the program. They're brought into a special chip so they can be tested and altered. The test chip, known as an EPROM, is assembled on a printed circuit board with other components. The game is then tested to make sure the circuit is correct and the computer plays the game properly. If it's not working correctly, the circuits are checked and altered. The circuits are then sent to a chip manufacturer and thousands of copies are produced. These are returned to the manufacturer and the games are assembled and packaged on a production line. Two different ways of lighting up the display in a handheld game are shown here. In the fluorescent tube system, all the characters you want to use are fixed to a board inside a glass tube and the tube is filled with gas. The characters are made up of a material which conducts electricity and above them there is a fine metal mesh. When a charge is sent to one of the characters, current flows between it and the mesh, lighting up the gap in between. By lighting up the characters one after another, it looks as though they are marching down the screen. In the liquid crystal display, the shapes of all the characters are etched on two pieces of glass in a way which makes them able to conduct electricity. The pieces of glass are sandwiched together with a transparent liquid crystal between them and a metal foil reflector behind them. Messages from the computer send currents of electricity to the shapes in the glass. When the current passes through the liquid crystal, it becomes turbulent. Light can no longer pass through it, so the shapes appear black. This is my Astro Blaster console, based on Konami's Scramble, but manufactured by Tomy in the UK and released by Hales. Bought me by my mum. That is the slot for the AC adapter. Instructions on the back, that's where the C batteries go. Let's play. Amateur mode, all live. Let's go. You can see the different shapes we have available to us. On the far left we have the spaceship, which has wings and a burning rocket. This is level 1, the city. You get blocks representing buildings, green missiles, which have a white dot in the centre. The white dot is also used to represent the fire, also the bomb. You get the red and green are fuel tanks, which are the same as the missile with the little red beret. If you notice on the left, the buildings have a gap in them because that's where the sprite for the rocket is. This is level 2, meteors. You can avoid the meteors, which are just dots approaching you. They don't go to the bottom of the screen, fortunately, but that's where the blocks come in the way. As you can see, fuel is dropping. You need to regularly refuel. This is essentially a version of Scramble. The difference being in Scramble we get two buttons, fire and bomb. Here the fire button does both at the same time. So you proceed over level, avoiding the meteors, popping up distance. Level 3 is UFOs. The flying UFOs are the red bits of the fuel tank, which look like devil horns, which bob up and down. They will hit you potentially if you lurk on the bottom of the screen, so you're better off sitting at the top, firing, then you get the bomb as well as the shooty out thing at the front, the cannon. You're still going to top up your fuel. If you run out of fuel, you will run out and you'll drop and then you'll die when you hit the ground. Oh, that was close. The steady buzzing represents the engine. If you do run out of fuel, that cuts out, and that's bizarrely quite terrifying. You slowly drop to the ground. Now we're into level 4, the tunnels. In professional mode, this is a lot harder because the gap between the start of each tunnel and the end of each path, although it's still two spaces, but you're going so much faster, it's going to challenge to get down, especially if you need to drop a bomb to clear the way for you to get to the tunnel. I'm running out of fuel here. It is of course deadly because we've dropped. Nothing you need to climb. Now, level 5, the space station. You need to get rid of these blocks. If you clear an entire layer, they reform. You do very carefully. Shoot and win. And it all starts again. There's a 4-page spread on chess computers, which are dedicated computers programmed to play only chess. The chess game pictured here has a computer with a keypad for entering your moves and a display to show the computer's responses. There's another example which has a robot arm which makes all the computer's moves for it and removes your pieces when the computer makes the capture. If the computer loses a game, it flings the arm about, flashes its light, and shrieks. The first known chess machine was a chessboard and a cabinet containing a complicated series of gears. Seated at the cabinet was the model of a man in Turkish dress, and the machine was then known as the Mechanical Turk. It is now believed to be a very clever hoax for the human operator. The machine played famous figures such as Benjamin Franklin and Napoleon Bonaparte. There was a story where Napoleon tried to cheat, the machine malfunctioned and swept the pieces from the board. There are 2 pages about computers on the move, vehicles you can program. The one pictured here is in fact the big tracks, which I remember being seen advertised on the telly. It can be programmed to go certain distances, turn corners, and fire proton beams, give it instructions via the keyboard on the back. The microprocessor stores the instructions and then carries them out in the right order. An earlier version of this sort of thing was the computer car, where you programmed a piece of cardboard by cutting out instructions. A TV game, such as the Atari 2600 seen here, is a computer that can make pictures for a game on an ordinary TV screen, not an expensive computer monitor. The console contains all the chips for running the game, except the ROM chip itself. This is the games cartridge, which contains the game itself. Games cartridges have to be kept clean, as dust on the printed circuit board can interfere with the flow of data. Blowing on them to clear the dust was common, but in fact adds moisture and thus makes the dust sticky. New games are still made today. There's a new version of Galaga called Galaga that runs on a basic 2600 without modifications, but as the developers note, they include an extra 32K of ROM on the cartridge, plus an extra ARM processor, which is able to assist with the game logic and enhance graphics. The alternative to a TV game with a cartridge was a microcomputer. You can play any game you want on a microcomputer, or you can invent your own. Most microcomputers consist of a keyboard which you plug into a TV set. The kind of game you can play depends on how much memory the computer has. A computer with a memory of 16K can cope with complex games like chess or imitation arcade games, or most of the advanced games in the Usborne series for that matter. With a smaller memory of 4K to 6K, you can play reasonable games, and with a memory of 1K, you can play only very simple games. The Sinclair ZX81, my personal one is pictured here, shipped with only 1K of RAM, therefore the games available were quite limited. The typing adventures are marked in the Usborne books with a special 1K marker. There was a reasonable version of chess available, missing a number of rules, including en passant, queening, promotion, castling, etc. That was the smallest version of chess available until 2015 Boot Chess arrived. It kept the record for some 36 years. The book goes on to give some samples of micro games. Lunar Lander. There are two versions of this in computer space games. One with graphics, like the one you see here, and one without. There's the adventure game, where the computer describes the hazardous adventure in words on the screen and asks you what to do at various stages. Usborne teaches you all about these in Write Your Own Adventure games. Then there is the venerable Hunt the Rumpus, which is a game of deduction where you're aware of what is in the three neighbouring rooms, but not what's in each. There might be a pit, a bat, or the terrifying rumpus itself, which you have to defeat by shooting an arrow. Arcade games have much larger and more powerful computers than handheld electronic games, so the games are more exciting. An arcade game has over 100 chips connected together on a printed circuit board, controlled by a microprocessor. Most of the space inside an arcade game is taken up by the coin box. An arcade game usually has two computers, one to control the game and another for the sound effects. The picture in an arcade game is made in the same way as a television picture. Some arcade games use special effects to make the game more exciting. In this example of Asteroids, you see a reflection of the screen, rather than the screen itself, against the painting background. The painting has more detail. Inside the game, there is a sheet of glass, positioned at an angle above the screen. The picture on the screen is upside down, so that when it is reflected on the glass, it's the right way up. You can see the painted background through the glass, so it looks awesome. The book notes that at an asteroids competition held in Washington, D.C., the top score was 142,910 points. According to Twin Galaxies, the longest held asteroids high score was set by Scott Safran in 1982, 41,336,440. Twin Galaxies searched for him from 1998 until 2002 to give him a special award, but discovered that he had sadly died in a falling accident from his apartment in 1989. An award was given to his family in honour of his achievement. This was the high score for Asteroids until John P. McAllister beat it by over 500,000 points in 2018. The book also notes that the world record for the longest game played by one person at the time was 16 hours 34 minutes. Steve Jurasek, a 15-year-old from Arlington Heights, Illinois, played for that long for 25 cents on the Game Defender. Lots of tips to get high scores on Asteroids, Missile Command, Pac-Man, Quix, Battlezone, Frogger, Scramble, Galaxian, Lunar Rescue, Swarm, Phoenix, Space Invaders, Stratos, and Field Goal. The book has a nice history of computer games up until 1982. Computer Space, pictured here, was the first video arcade game made in 1971. It was a dogfight between a flying saucer and a spaceship. It had a very simple black and white picture. It was invented by Nolan Bushnell, later founder of Atari. The first TV game was made in 1972 by Magnavox. It had a computer with players' controls and some coloured overlays for the screen. The computer could only make a few spots of light on the screen. Pong was the first TV game made by Atari in 1975. It was a dedicated computer and could play only a simple black and white bat and ball game, followed by Super Pong, which could play 4 different bat and ball games. The first handheld electronic games appeared in 1976. They contained a computer on a chip and had their own built-in display. 2 of the first games were Football and Auto Race, both made by Mattel. The book also notes that within 10 years of publication, the computer games of today will probably seem very basic and primitive. The games of the future will be faster and more exciting, with superbly realistic screen displays. They'll be able to reconstruct detailed pictures of, say, the Battle of Waterloo. Well, Shogun Total War came out in 2000, and Napoleon Total War in 2010. It notes that you might be able to play long-distance games, and by the year 2000,
you'll be able to challenge someone hundreds of miles away to a game. The games will contain miniature radio transmitters and receivers, which will transmit your moves and receive those of your opponent with very little delay. Your opponent's moves will be automatically carried out in a liquid crystal display. And then here you see the ultimate game, which will be a super realistic computer simulation which takes place all around you in a special games cubicle. The game, perhaps a space invasion or adventure game, will have three-dimensional effects, laser lighting, and quadraphonic sound. So that was a little look at the Usborne Guide to Computer and Video Games, how they work and how to win. It's not currently available on their website. Hopefully it will be in the future because it's really, really nice. Beautifully presented throughout and really educational. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please consider leaving a like, leaving a comment on what you liked or what you didn't like, and maybe hitting the subscribe button. There'll be more next week, hopefully. Thank you. Just for fun, can you identify any of the video game creatures here? Answer in the comments below.